Hello, everybody. I am Lamerck, and welcome to the Wardroom. We had a little hiccup at the start, so I hope you guys have all gotten to join us here for our first episode of Season 1, our analysis of games 1 through 3, the first full suite of games between each of the different competitors in the league. So let's start today by taking a look at the league standings. And again, I apologize if you saw the first stream and you're just jumping back on now, or God forbid if this stream crashes. You know it's not a war room. If you're here for the preseason, you know it's not a war room unless something gets messed up, and it's no fault of anybody who produces it. They all do their best, but sometimes the technology does not work with us. So let's get into this, assuming that there will be no issues, and talk about the league standings. So what we have is a not wholly surprising, but a very interesting sort of beginning to the league, and kind of just seeing how each of these teams are reflected in their opening battles. And we're going to go over each one of the battles that resulted in this here. Let me just quickly pull up my information here. We see at the top, we do have the Leviathans. Sorry, I'm still trying to find this information here in my. There we go. We have the Leviathans with a 1-0 standing at 22,502 points. The Marines at a 1-0 with 3,361. The SCP-38s with 1,320. And then we get into those who have lost the first series, the Royal Black Fleet, would have very narrow loss the SCP-38s with the equivalent negative to the positives that I just read out on the beginning. So you can see who played who basically by the inverse points. So this is how things are going to start, but this is certainly not how things are going to end. This is just, again, this is just the beginning. I would say that by the end of this, there are some teams that I'm seeing on here, and I'm not going to name any names just yet, that I think are going to be much higher on this list. And remember, what we're playing for with these league standings is to get into those top three teams. The top three teams are going to be the ones that are eligible to knock each other out at the end of the season and claim the championship crown for the entire year, right? So anybody who makes it into that top three has a shot. Whoever is the number one has the best shot because they have the least at the end, basically teams 2 and 3 are going to battle each other to challenge team number 1, and then that will result in the champion's crown being awarded to whomever is that final victor. So top 3 gets you to the end of the season, or it gets you to the championship round. All right, so today we're going to be covering the, again, first 3 battles. The Jackals of the Baltic Sea versus the Marines is going to be our first battle today. Then we're going to take a look at the Leviathans versus the Krakens, and then our last game will be the Royal Black Fleet versus SCP-38s. Okay, so each of these are a very interesting game, and they do teach us a little bit about what the state of the metagame is coming into season 1. I think if I had to characterize it overall, it would be a lot more contemplative and a little bit more passive play as not as the complete rule. There are exceptions. Certainly, the second game, the My Leviathans versus the Krakens, was, I don't think anybody could call that passive from either team. But what you can see from the other 4 teams in the league is a hesitancy to really jump in for the kill and expose yourself to too many dangers. Though there are, again, as we will talk about, some serious exceptions. So let's start with our first battle, the Jackals of the Baltic Sea versus the Marines. And I hope that you all noticed that we tried to up our game with a little bit of these excellent cards and slides that hopefully inform you in ways that we did not last season, as we were all trying to just put this together as best as we could. The Jackals of the Baltic Sea versus the Marines is a battle that, to me, showed the level of competency, but also the amount of growth that still needs to be done by many of these teams. We have 2 teams who really understand fundamentals. At the same time, utilizing those fundamentals to their fullest, we're not seeing it here yet. And so you'll see moments of I think what we would call missed opportunities throughout this. So to start off with, let's look at the openings of both of these. And I do apologize. I do apologize for this. We've gotten rid of this now, and there's a lot clearer here. So what I want to showcase right off the bat is a what I want to showcase right off the bat is a sense that banking the wind here, as you're going to see happen, it's a great strategy, and I think what we're going to see it from mostly is the Marines. Um, the issue is when you bank the wind, but you bank too much wind. That's the danger here. And I think it costs the Marines a really strong opening uh, that unfortunately they suffered to get the momentum back that they had at the beginning. So let's try and really just quickly take a look here. Um, I would say right about let's get to an overhead here. So what we're noticing here, right? Even maybe earlier, right from the beginning, this maneuver here that we're seeing, um, their decision to come out. So sorry for that. Let me get out of this. Again, it's not a wardroom unless things go nuts. Um, them coming out from the spawn and having this downwards trajectory is a really good opening. The problem is that they create way too much space from the beginning. And they do not have the opportunity to then utilize the wind that they've banked to create any kind of aggressive push towards the enemy. And so what I mean by that is, um, you know, anytime you see a team that banks the wind, they are setting themselves up for future success. The issue here is that they are not setting themselves up for future success here. They are instead setting themselves up for a major, a missed opportunity is what I would call it. And you'll see as they come through here, and they continue on this way. Uh, they are not going to be able to get behind or get anywhere near the jackals as the jackals skirt away through these islands. So let's fast forward a little bit here. You can see that what the jackals are going to do is they're going to go behind this island. Look at all this space that we have here. It's just not serving. It's not serving the Marines in any particular way. The jackals have hidden in the islands. The Marines are down here. They have the wind because the wind is going south. It's going straight up from this screen as you're seeing now. Unfortunately, what it is not doing is it's not giving them anything, right? They don't have the option that they want here to cut around behind the jackals. They don't have the option to jump in and even like get any kind of battle going. They just don't have it. And so you can see here when they turn, instead of being able to turn and go through this island here as they may have liked, right? So like what they would love is to be able to cut in through here, but they just cannot do it. And the reason that they can't do it is now because they've lost the time it takes because they banked too much wind. So if we go back to the beginning, I'd like to offer and posit an alternative trajectory for them. Let's see if we can get it bounce around. Okay. So while these guys are cutting straight across here, right? While this team is cutting straight across here, rather than go really far out and then get left behind as these guys snake in, what we would look for from this team is more of a shallow banking of the wind. Somewhere this way is going to allow them to get, because getting the wind and getting a lot of wind, there's not like this trajectory and this trajectory get you basically the same advantage, which is to say that you will then be able to turn and you'll have the wind, and your enemy, when your enemy turns to maybe make a circle with you, right? They are going against the wind and you have the wind, and you can then hopefully swing around behind them and catch them off guard. That's the whole point of banking the wind at the beginning of the game. And unfortunately, the Marines, yeah, they banked too much wind. They lost momentum and gave their opponents the space to sneak through here and not really be punished or opposed. Now, if we're talking about the Marines' trajectory being pretty shallow, they still have the wind, and maybe these guys are like here. That's pressure. This proximity would be pressure. for the Marines to place on the Jackals, and they may still end up sliding in here, but a much closer Jackal fleet gets to follow them into this gap and continue the pressure. Momentum is applying pressure to your enemies and then keeping that pressure up until they start making mistakes. This really healthy respect that both teams have for each other at the beginning of the battle is nice to see from a sort of collegial standpoint of, again, respect is nice to see, and fearing your opponent's capabilities is nice, but it doesn't set a battle up. And it doesn't make a battle happen, and it doesn't create situations that you can exploit. And so that's why I have to critique the Marines opening here. The Jackals opening, I think they've definitely also should have, because they have neutral wind here. I don't see why both teams don't try and go against the wind to start off with and then make their adjustments as they choose. Maybe one of them will want to turn. Maybe that person will copy out. Right. There's a lot of options that can happen there. However, I think the major thing here is that the Jackals gave up the wind. And we're going to see in 2 matches today that just going straight out of spawn and not seeming to have any kind of plan of what you're going to do after that, it could be a huge weakness. In this battle, the Jackals were not punished for this very standard and sort of regular opening, but they could have been. And that's why I'm critiquing the Marines a little bit more. Not because I think that they had the worst opening. They had the probably the better opening that unfortunately was not executed perfectly, and so did not give them an opportunity to create any sort of early game advantage here. And as we will see as the game progresses, it will not transform into anything. What we'll see, I'm trying to get you to an overhead, is that these guys will slip behind here, come out here, the battle will go here, and then swing around this way, and then these guys will swing around here, and then they'll both basically get into a line battle this way. All this maneuvering, basically just to end up in a line battle. It's I wouldn't call it a complete waste of time, but it didn't really bring us anywhere in the beginning. It's maneuvering, but it's not maneuvering really against your opponent in any way. It's more of just watching them from a distance. As you can see, we're at a point where the Jackals have come through here, out here, up here. Where are we going, ladies and gentlemen? That's my question. These guys are going to give chase, as they should, because somebody's got to do something to get this battle started. Because up until then, as you can see at the top of the screen, nothing's really happened except for some gunboats and rocket boats have been lost. And unfortunately, that means that this battle has not progressed because the gunboats and rocket boats do not count for victory or defeat. And so, we really have to think about, as admirals, my opening has to do something for me, and it has to put me in a striking position. And so, that is something I think the opening for both of these teams could improve quite a bit. So we skip ahead pretty significantly here. What you're going to see is these two teams. These guys are going to swing around this way. These guys are going to curve in, I think, this way. And again, we're going to get to a line battle out here. Okay, so let's take a look at how that develops. And it will develop pretty quickly. Let's take a look. So this is post turn. Really great moment to shout out here the gunboats that come in here and really do a number on these guys. This is a beautiful moment for the gunboats. They really hit this front ship. I know we like to talk about like larger strategy and decision points here, but you can't argue that this like solid minute of gunboat or rocket boat it is on 8-gun action was a part of what sets up the second half of this battle. As we can see here, this is great use of the gunboat or the rocket boat. It hits the enemy and then keeps with them, and it's just depositing crew onto their ship over and over and over again, constantly contesting, stopping the operations as 8-gun. So kudos to these guys. They really did a great job here. One of these masts get taken down. All really nice to see. Not what we're exactly here for today, but really nice to see. As you can see, we develop into a line battle here. This line battle went worse for the Marines than it did for the Jackals. The Jackals, for any critique I may have about their choices, their fleet formation up into this point was immaculate. This is the high watermark for the Jackals in this battle. It goes really downhill for them after this. What they managed to do here is get a very messy Marine line and pick off the front. Most of their firepower really hitting the Marines flagship here and blowing up a lot of their cannons on their right side of their ship, the starboard side of their ship. At this point, you can see up here when we look at our life totals that they are looking pretty similar, but it's going to drop down for the Jackals very quickly. I want to give it to the Jackal 13 gun commander for making a hard but correct choice here. And that hard but correct choice is the choice to pull out, as you are seeing him begin to do here. He is turning left. And he is going to get tagged for it. You'll see up here the HP is going to drop pretty drastically. And he is going to escape, but not unscathed. That said, the reset in this moment here is a phenomenal one, and it really benefits the Jackals overall. The 13 guns HP has been reduced, but not wildly. Just like the 8 guns HPs have been increased, but not wildly. It's good to see that the 13 gun can still take a pounding and survive, which is, it should. It is the heavy ship of the game. But you would not think in this moment that the Marines are setting themselves up for success. They are, however. A few really excellent positions from the different ships help out a lot to set up an end game that I don't think the Marines planned at this point in their battle. I think right now they're thinking, we just need to get the heck out of this battle. It's not looking good for us. I have to say, again, this is another moment in which I'm not wholly feeling the desperate need for victory on either of these teams. Instead, what I'm seeing and what I'm feeling is a overabundance of caution. I think on the Jackals it's warranted. I'm sorry. I think from the Marines it's warranted. I think on the Jackals it's really not. I'm not sure why they continue to keep going. Right. So if we take a look at where they're here, this position right here is a golden position. They're going. They have an island in front of them, but they have egress off to their right, so they can make the turn that they're going to make. But right now, this team is well within their sights. This is the point where if I'm the Jackals admiral, I tell my fleet, stop, stay here, fire, 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 fire. Put as much damage in them as possible. We're winning this firefight. We've really reduced the enemy 13 guns' ability to fight back. We need to press our advantage here and get as much damage as possible. If they want to do a line battle here, I will take it because we're winning it. Instead, they continue to move forward, and I'm not entirely sure why they continue to move forward and what it gains them. What is having a ship out here really going to do for anybody except give you an island between you and the enemy where you can turn freely? That I can see. But again, these guys are still well within range of the 13 gun, and very likely, let's take a look at some of these shots. Yeah, they're well within range of the 8 guns. Why not punish them for their retreat? I can't answer that. Only a Jackals representative could. But this is the question that I am left asking at this moment. Why are the Marines allowed a reset? I don't think they should be allowed a reset. I think they get a reset, and I think they make the most out of that reset that anyone could in this league. But I don't think they should have been afforded it. We'll see this again in a later battle. A lot of time to let the enemy recollect themselves, and I think a little bit of aggression is warranted here, but it's very understandable why we're not seeing it. This is the first battle of a new season. Nobody wants to be the guy who presses the offense so much that he loses it for his team. So they play a little safe. That's fine. Now you're going to see this reset happen. After this moment, this is where the Marines take initiative. The captain of the 13 gun knows that he's got to do something at this point. He's got to get aggressive because he's losing. He's losing not badly, but this kind of disparity in the 13 gun ship HP is got to be setting off alarm bells. So let's skip a little forward to where the magic happens. You can really see it beginning to develop here. What we've got is a doomsday scenario for the Jackals. This island here stops any turn this way. So you're going to see that once they get down here, their only option is to just keep going forward or turn, right? Now, this island here also presents its own difficulties because a turn here has got to go around it in one way or around it in the other way. And that That decision gums up the Jackals. It just blows up their brains. What we can also see from this situation is how overextended the 13 gun is. Whether intentional or not, and I'm probably thinking there's a stage at which it becomes intentional, but probably all throughout this, so right about this point, I don't think it is intentional, but it gets intentional. When he realizes that he is just this irresistible bait for the enemy fleet, and that if he goes here, they're going to continue coming down this way to try and get him and sink him, right? Because he's already low on HP. They probably sense it. And that is what plays out. And it plays out in a way that is stunning to behold because he's able to cross in front of the Jackal's fleet. He's able to get in front of them. He's able to hurt them and confuse them and put them in a situation where they don't know where to turn. Another interesting thing that you will see out here is the 8 gun. So let me pause this just to divert a little bit of attention to this guy out here. This is the D-massed 8 gun on the Marines. And he ends up being what all of these ships, as they turn into. And I guess they get distracted by him. I mean, this is just, this whole scenario is a godsend for the Marines. And it becomes something, I think, better than they could have possibly expected. The big criticism has to come here for the Jackals and this horrible turn that they're making here. There's no softer words that I can use to sort this out. We have to talk about what they did, and then we have to talk about what they needed to do in this moment to preserve their line and their offensive power. What they do here is they turn 2 8 guns in to fire the 13 gun, and they turn the 13 gun and the 8 gun behind it at the same time. So this is a full fleet turn simultaneous. What that does wrong is it blocks the rear 2 ships with the front 2 ships, and it limits the amount of firepower that the Jackals can bring to bear against the Marines' isolated flagship, buying the flagship time to get reinforced by these 8 guns that are coming in behind it. It also is a very okay. So before we start about the consequences of this, we need to talk about what they need to do because this is the consequence. The consequence is this 13 gun, by continuously moving forward from its position over here and swinging around, while this 13 gun turns this way and heads directly towards this island to keep its cannon fire on these 3 ships. What we're seeing here is the tables turning, and this ship is out of rotation. Like there's probably 1 cannon, maybe 2 that can shoot in its direction, and it is very quickly going to move past the rotational range, right? So everything has a rotational range from which these cannons can fire out. And if you get past that rotational range, they can't fire that way because the cannon just can't turn far enough. So he gets out of this, and he hits this ship from somewhere around here and hits it from behind. Really, really great maneuver here. Let's go back and see what the Jackals could have done here at this point. Actually, it's really at, let's go back a little bit more. That's a little bit too far back. We'll see if we can get an overhead screen of them beforehand. Well, this is probably about as good as we're going to get. What they need to do here is stay in this line as they turn. So they're going to come down and they're going to realize, oh, this guy's going to cut in front of us. We don't like that. So we want to turn this way, which I think is basically their only major option here. But to do it, they have to do what we in X call a snake turn. And a snake turn is where, let's say he comes out here and then turns here. Well, then this guy's going to come out here and turn here as well. And then this guy's going to come out here and turn here as well, right? And what that does is it preserves the line. It slows down when everybody is going to turn, right? But it keeps this linear nature. It doesn't have this guy coming here and turning, and then this guy coming back here and turning at the same time, because they're going to turn at the same time, but then they're going to block each other's firing range, and blocking each other is the issue that comes from this formation, and it's how by all just turning at the same time, these guys bunch themselves up into a group here and make it impossible for them to bring their full firepower on this flagship. They clump basically. And now, if we were talking about the snake maneuver, there would be a ship now sidling up behind this Aegon, and then another ship sidling up behind that Aegon. It would take them longer to get into this formation, but the formation itself would have much more strength and much more raw firepower to blast here. And then it would be another form of a line battle. It is not, however, and instead only these two ships can hit the 13 gun. Not good. Now, you know, I think it was Amit who wondered who must have bribed the 8 guns to just completely abandon the 13 gun and focus fire on that crippled Marines 8 gun that's out far away. I can only mirror his commentary. This is an abandonment of the 13 gun that I cannot understand and certainly do not approve of from the Jackals. They have unfortunately left their 13 gun to die. Their 13 gun, by the way, skipping back a little bit, was at nearly full health, as we could see up here on the screen. Nearly full health. To go from that advantage to maybe 2 minutes later having ship HP parity and then losing your flagship before the Marines flagship, which was at half ship HP, shows that the Jackals did not prioritize what they needed to prioritize. Instead, we have this absurd situation here where these 8 guns are focusing on a ship that can do absolutely nothing to them. Probably only has 1 or 2 cannons left. Cannot move anywhere. Ought to be left behind and ignored for the rest of the battle, while the main danger, which is these ships coming around behind them, is dealt with. It is perplexing. Now, the end of this battle is a real letdown for me. We can criticize the Jackals, and I will criticize the Jackals for the ending of this game and how it is that they kind of didn't press an advantage that they had towards the end. But we also really have to critique the Marines. The Marines end up going here. They end up swinging around this way and going into this channel. It is not really a good move as far as I'm concerned. I'm not sure the question is, what do you get out of this channel? First thing you get is the ability to be blockaded off on either side of that channel to devastating consequences. So the other thing you get is a real lack of maneuverability because this channel is not very wide. It's pretty narrow. So you have a lack of maneuverability and 2 choke points that the enemy could, if they wanted to, pin you in. I'm not seeing the advantages of this. I think they really need to get in there and hit that rear 8 gun. I like what they're doing now. I love what they're doing now. It should be continuing this way. This is a point to stop. This is a point to maybe try and get closer to the enemy. They're freaking out, and they're focusing fire on a ship that is completely inconsequential, as we can see here right on screen. It is unfortunately, and they sink it, which is great, but they've lost their flagship. That is not an even trade for the Jackals. So now we have what we see here, which is a very perplexing move from both teams. The Marines put themselves in a situation where the Jackals, by every right, should cut them off from the rear, and the way that they should do that is what they seem to look like they're about to do. That's this, right? Jackals have the opportunity to cut in, get behind the enemy fleet, and hit them. Now, the Jackals, actually, in this YouTube video, you can see that the Jackals actually, a representative talks about why they didn't do it. So they have one ship that's very injured. They have another ship that does not have the cannons on the side that they would need to maybe put the pressure, right? Because they're going to come, again, they're going to come up here. And so to have that, they would need cannons coming from this side to shoot in to this channel. Okay, they get here. They look like they're going to do it. Obviously, one of these ships does not have the cannons on the left side. That's okay. You don't need all those ships. You don't need it. You know what you need to do? You need to sink one more ship. That's what you need to do. You need to sink one more ship. The game is tied. You need a single sink. That's it. Nothing more. You need to get a 2-on-1, and you need to hit that 2-on-1 as hard as possible. You don't need the 3-on-1. You can take the other 2 ships and pull them out. Though I don't know why you would. Even if a ship only has 1 cannon, that's 2 ships and 1 cannon versus any one of these ships. Let's talk about how you do it. Okay. So let's use this. even though these guys are already on their way out and running to try and get a point win that was never going to happen for them. What they do is they come out and they go really wide. Okay, they take a lot of distance between themselves and the one ship that they need to sink, which is this guy here. So they don't cut in hard because that allows, if they cut in that hard, it allows every one of these ships to just turn and turn and maybe turn here and then fire back at them. So then you've got the entire Marines fleet firing at what could be maybe these two ships. I understand the hesitancy to do that, and you should be hesitant to do that. But if you just go out far enough where maybe the flagship and maybe their A gun can get shots on you, and you are just firing 2 to 3 ships worth, let's say 2.5 ships worth, all directly setting up here, all firing directly into this rearmost ship that is going against the wind away from you, you have an opportunity to get a sink on this ship that will win you the battle. That they did not do that and instead went for easy rocket boat or gunboat points, it cost them any chance of victory here. Now, their ship got sunk anyway. I don't know. They didn't have the points win at this point, so they're low on points, the Jackals. And so, they losing a ship was just a different way for them to lose this battle. But unfortunately, yeah, the ending of this battle is perplexing from both sides because you got to ask yourself what are the Marines getting out of this arrangement here? What does being in here get you? What is the advantage? Were they trying to maybe bait the hook that we were talking about earlier and then swing all their ships into rotation and hit it? Maybe. If so, it's a very dangerous situation to put them in, but they've got to be feeling at this point like they've got some kind of advantage because they still got their flagship. But they're going against the wind. This is against the wind. Wind is going this way. So for me, this would be a very scary position to be in as the Marines. I would love to find out what their thought process was in this moment. Maybe it was just get away. Maybe it's we're gonna win and get away. If so, and I can't represent that is their philosophy here, and so I don't want to speak as though that is what it is. But if that were the case, and both teams are thinking, oh, well, I really like where I am right now, let's just get away from the opponent and let the time clock run out, it is a disappointing end to what could have been a very climactic finish. The middle of this battle was exceptional. The maneuver from the Marines to take out the Jackal's flagship was nothing short of amazing. The Jackal's abandonment of their flagship in that crucial moment and the break of their fleet cohesion was nothing short of extraordinary. And those two factors combined gave the Marines the ability to really squeak this one out in a battle in which I think a more aggressive Jackals would have probably taken it. And so what we're seeing here, as I said earlier in the broadcast, is teams that seem to understand their fundamentals, but are still a little bit wobbly in their usage. Right from the opening, where the Marines gave way too much space for the Jackals to maneuver, even like they caught the wind. That's the fundamental, right? Early on in this battle, let's go back to it just to do a quick recap. Early in this battle, they claim the wind. That's a fundamental, right? Claiming because remember, just again, if you're not familiar with how the wind works, the wind is going this way in the battle, which means that as these guys come around and swing this way, they are going in accordance with the wind, and therefore they have speed. Whereas the Jackals coming around will be coming this way, that is against this wind, therefore low speed. High speed allows you to get around behind the enemy. It allows you to get an advantageous position on them where you can get behind their ships, you can fire at them where they can't fire back. But you can't do this if you're so far out as the Marines that on the approach, on your swing back in, these guys will have enough time to escape you, which is what happens, right? So that's the fundamental applied incorrectly. It's a fundamental applied without timing being considered. So again, we have a fundamental, but we have a way in which it was not exactly handled perfectly. Another thing, we have a fundamental a little bit closer to here, where you have a concentration of firepower on the enemy, and when the enemy shows weakness against your concentration of firepower, you hurt them for it. You hurt them badly for it, but not applied correctly because these guys continue to move forward and they don't take as much opportunity as they needed to really deal the damage to these ships. Unfortunate, right? These are unfortunate missed opportunities. So, this moment here is a beautiful usage of fundamentals. Like this moment for the Marines is fundamentals working perfectly. Why? He is again utilizing the wind because from this perspective, the wind is going this way. So all through this arc here, he's utilizing the wind. This entire team is against the wind, right? The Jackals are dead against the wind. So he utilizes the wind to escape out of the range and rotation of the enemy flagship, preserving his very damaged flagship and actually scoring a kill on this flagship. That's a use of fundamentals that has positioning, wind, and timing all working in the benefit of the Marines captain there. Also, it doesn't hurt that the entire Jackals team has completely abandoned their flagship for reasons that I cannot begin to fathom. All right. So you get the defeat. Later on in the battle, a really interesting gunboat or rocket boat comes in and sinks one of the Jackals' 8 guns, thereby sealing in a Marines victory. There are a lot of things that you could take out of this that are positive, and there are a lot of things that need work from both of these teams, and we cannot wait to see how they develop and their confidence builds and their fleet cohesion continues to develop. We are seeing real signs of genius amongst these guys. I know I've been nothing but critical throughout this, but that's the whole point, is to break these down and talk about how things could have gone better. But that should not take away from the fact that these guys are really getting an understanding of fundamentals. The Jackals, let's talk about their best points. For Jackals, for 90% of the battle, fleet cohesion. But the moment that broke is the moment they started losing. Nonetheless, at the beginning of the battle, their fleet cohesion was really good. They took the first half of this battle all on the backs of having a strong fleet cohesion, which is to say, all the ships were together. They were all firing at similar targets. They were supporting each other. They were close to each other. There were no gaps in their line. The Marines clearly have more ability to think on the fly and to press a disadvantage. And that's what helped them eke out the Marines' victory in this battle. Okay, let's finish up with this one because we do have 3 battles to go to, and I've already taken up enough of your time with this one. So let's move on, control room, to the next battle, which is my battle, the Leviathans versus the Krakens. Now, this is a battle that is a little bit different in terms of levels of aggression, and both of the teams doing a really good job to get in there and get aggressive right off the bat. So let's start. The Leviathans are under my command here. And so, as not to be disrespectful to the Krakens, who are not here to represent themselves while I am, I'm going to just try to talk mostly about what my decision-making process was and talk about what I think worked and what didn't. The Krakens are a great team. I don't think this was their finest moment, and I know this must have been a hard defeat for them. And I think some of the reasons behind it are, certainly wind, but also positioning and our usage of the islands. So I think the thing to talk about here is what I try to do with these central islands and the split decision that I make as we get closer to them. To kind of confound the Kraken's decision making, right? Because the wonderful and beautiful thing about Holdfast is that these are real people fighting. These are not bots. This is not a computerized opponent. These are real people with plans and doubts. They second guess themselves. They change their mind, and they have a morale. Every person on here has a moment where they can either feel confident or they can feel unconfident in the position and the course that the battle is taking. And so to the really high art of being an admiral is to get in your opponent's head, make them second guess themselves, and make them commit errors that you can then exploit. In the beginning of this battle, I believed in my planning, and I know that the Krakens believed that the battle was going to take place around here. That is basically the area because the wind is going northeast. So that is to say the wind is going this way. For the Krakens to go down here would be to go basically directly against that wind, which would make them extremely slow and not at all set up for victory. Because if we, the Leviathans, also cut down this way, we would be going at what I call half wind. As you can see, our trajectory is intersecting at a 90-degree angle with the wind, and that would create an opportunity for us to move faster. This is like half speed, and this is like minimum speed. So what would happen is they would come down this way, nice and slow, and we would cut them off from the front. They'd get to about here when we get to about here, right? So, and that would have my ships able to hit them as they're coming through this gap. This is very similar to something that happened against the Seawolves when they fought the Leviathans last in the preseason. They left their spawn going dead against the wind, thinking that they could escape some of the islands that they were trying to get out of in time. And I rushed with the best wind possible to that point, and I got to cut them off. A similar thing here happened, right? But as we progress through this, you'll see that I change my mind, right? This is the human element that comes into it. I see that the Krakens are thinking about coming out and then coming down. That I don't want, because if I come up here and then they come down here, well, if I come this is me. So if I come up here and then they go down here, they're going to bank the wind, right? We talked so much about last game about banking the wind and how useful it is. So as soon as I see them going here, you'll notice that I'm in this 13 gun. I almost instinctually break off and start to wander this way. I give my captains as much time as possible to make it look like they are still going to go in this direction here. And at the very last possible second, I will then have them snake down this way. That, you'll see, has a reaction on the lead ship. As soon as they see me coming down here, and as soon as they see these guys start to go down here, they change their minds in response, because they know if we end up going this way, we will get there way ahead of when they get there. Again, cutting them off and claiming the win for ourselves. A lot of the maneuvering is a battle to claim better wind. And again, what is better wind? It's going against the wind now so that you can go with it later. At this point, they decide, screw it, we're going to go this way. And you can see the change happening right here. He is beginning to pull out. He's not going this way anymore. Now he swings back and he comes this way. This is the moment where I start to feel a sense of real confidence in my strategy. As you can see, I have my flagship here. I see that what's coming up is islands, this whole island area in here. This is going to give my team the cover it needs to reform. These islands here are blocking off any attempt to, like, maybe these guys turn out here, right? So if they were to come here, let's pause this for a minute and really analyze. If they were to come out here and turn and start firing at these guys, most of these guys would be able to slip behind this island before they can take a lot of damage. So now these guys can't think that way, and they know it, right? These are good captains. These are good admirals. They know that basically the battle is going to take place either coming out here or coming out here. One of these two. That's where my options are now. They want what I'm giving them here, which is my flagship. The flagship's going to come out here, and they're going to get kind of interested in it. And they're going to come out here, and they're going to be firing in here, and I'm going to be firing back out at them here. So let's watch that develop. You'll notice as this happens, my flagship is going to cut and deploy sails over and over and over again. And the goal for that is to bait them further forward. I want those ships to come forward because I am being blocked by this island. That island is giving me cover. Nobody's shooting over the island to hit me, which means that if you want to come get me, you've got to be in this gap here. If you're in this gap here, that means that your fleet is no longer back here. I want this terrain here. What I want is I want to pull this fleet forward, and then I want to swing around behind it. And because again, where's the wind? The wind is going northeast. The wind is going this way. So as I'm doing this swing, I will have wind. If they try to turn, they will not have wind, right? So their trajectory could be to go down here if they want to cut me off from behind, and my trajectory to go up here. They would be going directly against the wind, which again is going this way. That's a terrible line. Is going this way. That's the wind. And so you can see how these two circles interact with that wind. The circle on the top, this guy is going against it. Our circle will be going with it. That is the usage of the wind. I need that situation to happen. The way that the Krakens stop me is by staying in place. So their opportunity to stop that from happening is covering this line right here. Because then if I come out, I get hit by every one of their ships. What I would have to do is one of two other things. Let's say they stay right here, right? They cover this. Either I swing out in front of them, in which case they can just go to this island and set up a line battle where we fire at each other across this distance. Or I go past them. We have a line battle between this part right here, and then I hook around behind. This island being too big to allow me to just swing and hit them really easily, they will then be able to do something, whether that's to go down this way, which I probably wouldn't do, or more likely go up here and swing about this way, and then our battle is somewhere in this back channel over here. So those are the options, how this can game out from here. Neither of those do I want. They're suboptimal. For me, I want these guys to extend themselves out to occupy this middle zone out here, because then I can cut around behind them and hit them from the rear. That is what ends up happening. So let's watch it play out. And as you can see, my playing around with my sails here, my cutting my sails, my holding, it's not just to let my opponents come in here, because I'm not my allies to get in line with me, because actually they're not going to be able to do a lot. There's not a lot of space here. So I can't have my whole fleet firing through here because there's just not enough space for all of us. It's really going to be us two versus the other two, these two up here. And I'm fine with that. I, again, want to bait them forward, want to bait them forward, want to bait them forward. What you'll notice, and what some people critique the Krakens here for, was that these two ships get ahead of themselves. They get far and separated away from the back of this fleet. But the back of this fleet is sensing what I'm trying to do. This is them logically responding to the pressure I'm putting on them, the pressure of me swinging around behind them. That's why this flagship, you'll see, it's not at full sail. It knows it really shouldn't go forward. It's not sure whether it should or shouldn't, but at the end of the day, with these guys continuing to move forward, it does have to support its allies. But I think he knows. I think he knows. I think that's what you're seeing here through these sheets, that it keeps kind of holding back. It's not going at full force. It's not going at full speed. If it wanted to go full forward, its sails will be fully deployed as is now when he realizes, holy shit, I've got to get out of here. Because now Merck's moved forward. He's now in a situation where he can get behind me. Now I've got to go forward. I got to get out of here as soon as possible. This is where, right after this, I think this next sail deployment for me is where I realize, okay, I've got my whole fleet behind me. We've got great fleet cohesion. It's time to spring the action that I've come here to do. And I move forward and I tell everybody full sail, and you will see all these ships start going full sail. This is the beginning of my attack run. Again, even in this moment, you can see that the 13 gun knows something's got to happen here. Something's going to happen back here. He has cut his sails because he's thinking, I've got to hit him as he comes out. Got to hit him as he comes out. I got to hit him as he comes out. I got to hit him as he comes out. If I do not put so much damage into Merck's flagship as he comes out, he is going to cut behind me and obliterate me. This, unfortunately for the Krakens, is too late. And I am going to take some serious damage, but it's not going to be enough. And the fact that there are 4 ships behind me means that even if you disable my flagship, it's not going to be enough. This is how it plays out. We get around behind them. These lead ships are too far overextended because they have been inching forward so that they could keep firing at this angle, right? They want to hit. They were sparring with me here, so they crept forward to keep hitting me. Now I'm gone. They have some ships to shoot back in here, but it's not working for them, and they get too far away. These guys are slamming into me, but I don't care. You can hit me as much as you want. You can hurt me as much as I want. I am not I have offensive capabilities and I'm using them, but what I really am is the point man on a maneuver. I've got to get through with my maneuver. If I take damage getting through with my maneuver, so be it. Because I've got to shepherd all the rest of these 8 guns to where they need to be, which is back here behind these 2 ships. So this is my decision-making process here. It ends with this, right? We can kind of see it happening in real time. The 13 gun does a really good job of keeping his cannon's rotations on some of my ships. But at this point, my flagship is mostly out of the danger zone and is just nailing shots into the 13 gun. This is where the battle really turns in our favor. This is where the 13 gun gets hit really hard. This is where the rest of their ships, the ones that you guys see back here, unfortunately do not do enough and are too far out to be able to do enough to support the 13 gun and the 8 gun. I think this is a moment of a loss of fleet cohesion. Whether this is the morale I was talking about earlier, where they start to feel anxiety that things are not going their way, and top-down communication starts to fail, and people are acting on their own initiative, right? The cohesion has been lost. And it gets regained, but in the end, they try to cut around behind us, right? So a lot of people think, all right, let's get behind them. We can hit them across their T. The issue with that is that they can't bring the firepower. And we have put so much hurt into them at this point that we're willing to give them going behind us. We're willing to sacrifice this ship here. He's going to hang out. They can have him. Our ship HPs are great. I'm not worried about this at this point. So if this guy ends up getting hit by all 3 of these guys, all 3 of these guys, oh well, we're still up by 2 ships, basically, because the ship is down really low. We're basically still up by a ship and 3/4. So at some point here, I give this guy the opportunity. Do whatever you want. Rear guard for us. Do what you've got to do. Now, this is where we hit the bad wind, but I'm not concerned. There's nobody pressuring my front here. There is another ship. He's all the way down here somewhere. I don't know where he is. I don't know what he's doing. But I know that he's not going to be any danger to me. My cannons all still have rotation and range on these enemies. So even though the wind is bad for me here, I'm in a good place. And again, you can see we've sacrificed this guy. He's going to take a lot of damage. Well, actually, he's not going to take that much damage, truth be told. But it's because these guys are just like desperately trying to get around behind us. The result is catastrophic for the Krakens at this point, because in a minute, they are hemmed in here. And our fleet will have a complete semi-encirclement of them, pinning them against these islands back here. This is where things get, go from positional advantage to wholesale slaughter of these ships. This is a situation that they did not want to find themselves in. They were trying to get around behind us, but they end up getting trapped. And you can see every ship here is now able to direct nonstop fire into these 3 8 guns, which are effectively pinned. This 8 gun coming in here is fit to be ignored. He can do whatever he wants. He can hurt us as bad as he wants. Our ship HPs for our 8 guns, I have lost my flagship at this point, which is, again, totally fine considering the positioning that I'm feeling here. This guy can do whatever he wants. He's 1 ship. He is the injured ship from the early game. Our concentration is entirely on these 3 ships here. It is entirely about finishing off as much HP as we can from these guys and just trying to whittle them down so much that the end game is ours to easily take. That is what we end up doing here. This ship kind of passes us by and then goes around, like he goes around out past his island. And so he removes himself as a threat for us. And then we can focus on these 4 ships just raining fire into here. And as you can see at this point, now desperate maneuvers are being taken to just get some of these ships to survive, just survive. It is a tough situation for them to be in. It shows how death spirals, which is when 2 fleets circle each other, 1 fleet goes around, another fleet comes around, can be just so dangerous to get locked in. And of course, with the islands in play, it makes it even more dangerous for the Krakens to be caught there. And they take a tremendous amount of punishment in here. There's no two ways about it. Our fleet regroups after they escape. So they slip out past here, and our fleet regroups. They are down to 2 ships. They regroup on the other side of the islands that they were just pressured into. This is the ship that got hurt in the opening. This is the survivor, the only surviving ship out of that pin moment. Our fleet comes into contact, and we want to make sure, absolutely guarantee that we are going to get a complete victory here. And the way that we're going to do that is we put these 2 guys here against the wall. That can be a focus for them. And they can fire here, while this guy's going to cut across and fire in this direction to make sure that they are not completely, I'm sorry, that they are encircled from 2 sides, so that we kind of box them in so that there is nowhere for them to go, and we can finish up this battle, which ends up being what we do here. As you can see, he's going backwards, he's going forwards, so and this second ship's here is still winging shots on them, and that is how we finish the battle. Again, I am here to represent myself. The Krakens are not here to represent themselves, and so I have tried not to talk too much about them, their motivations, and the strengths and weaknesses of this battle. I think that the strengths of our team were the positioning and the ability for me to bait their fleet forward when we were in those center islands to allow us to have the space behind them in which we could cross their T from behind. While some of their forward ships were overextended. So this was a positioning victory for us. I'm very proud of it. I believe this was our biggest point victory ever. And so, I'm very proud of that. It looks great on the opening league standings that we watched at the beginning of the game, where we have 22,000 points up, and the next highest team is 3,000 points up. That is not going to continue for the rest of the season. There are very strong teams here. They will challenge us. Our point differential will drop. The Krakens will certainly win more battles in their future. They will get themselves into a positive win-loss ratio. This is just the first few games. We have 9 months, well, 8 months now, 8 months of play left. There are going to be many twists and turns as we go through the season. And so while I am very proud of this victory against the Krakens, who were one of the top 3 teams of last season, I am in no way saying that this is indicative of the Krakens being a weak team, or that that we really truly stand as far above the rest of our competitions as the league standings would suggest at this point. This was a great victory. I'm very proud of it. Things will change for us, and I'm very excited to see how all the other teams continue to develop and challenge us in the future. And but of course, I hope we keep winning. As the guy who the founder and director of the league, I want to see really great competition. But putting on my other hat as a leader of the Leviathans, obviously I want to see us keep winning. So I'm of course always at conflict with myself as to whether I want us to win or lose. But you can guarantee that I will go out there and try my hardest to win whenever I am in charge of the Leviathans, and whenever I am talking as the representative of the league. I want upsets like you can't imagine. I want somebody to beat the Leviathans. I want somebody to slap us around and make it so that we really got to fight our way back to the top and create the drama. So, I can only thank the Krakens for a great battle, and we'll see you on the next one. All right. So we have a third battle, the third of our first sort of grouping of the league, and that is going to be the Royal Black Fleet versus the SCP-38s. In many ways, this is a sort of hybrid of the 2 battles that we just saw. In one aspect, it is unfortunately not served by the amount of caution that both teams show for each other, which we saw a little bit in the first game. But it's also a great showing of positioning and utilization of the wind by the SCP-38s. The Royal Black Fleet, this is not the best game that they've ever had. And unfortunate because in some of their late games in the preseason, there were moments of absolute genius from the Royal Black Fleet. Their defeat of the Krakens is one of the great victories of the preseason. And I was really hoping to see in this battle another victory like that for the Royal Black Fleet to sort of cement a reputation that they belonged at the top tier of the teams in this league. This showing did not make that case for them. It is not to say that they cannot do that in the future. I truly believe that they can, but they did not do it here. Instead, the 38s, the SCP 38s, really dominated this battle. Unfortunately, their domination was in the sort of the morale only variety because they certainly did not dominate it in any way that sunk a ship because they did not sink a ship, right? So we have to take it for what it is. It is a show from the SCP-38s that they are really, really smart at the fundamentals, and they're very good at timing, but they did not have a killer instinct in this battle, and I do not believe it served them very well. Um, so I can only say that the SCP-38s showed us a glimpse of their strategic mindset, but what they did not show us is the ability to close the deal and obliterate a team that, by all rights, probably should have been beaten very handily through this battle because of the spread out nature of their fleet in so many different parts of this battle. So let's get into it. The start of this battle, the 38s do a really great thing. They go against the wind. I did not. I did expect what my predictions were that both teams would go against the wind, and then they would find themselves like these guys would go down here, these guys would go down here, and then they would both loop in and go through one of those channels. That is not what happens. Instead, the Royal Black Fleet, who you can see on the left of the overhead screen, ends up going straight across. I have major questions about this maneuver. It is the same thing that we saw in the first battle, where the Jackals just go straight across the map, whereas the Marines bank the wind. Here, the SCP-38s bank the wind, but they adjust themselves. They are on the same trajectory that the Marines were in the first battle, where they were banking too much wind. But you can see here, as an illustration of the point I was trying to make earlier, by making a course correction, the 38s take being too far into the wind and they narrow that distance, and then they are able to effectively and strongly pressure their opponents, and it makes for beautiful results. So the SCP-38s get points for this. They understand the fundamental of using wind, but they also understand the fundamental of using proximity and timing about when they're going to utilize the wind that they banked in the early game. Let's take a look. So the adjustment is happening here. Okay, you can really see it as we go forward. They are going in this direction, and then they turn and they come into here. And I'm really sorry about this. The quality of the overhead shot on this one. We are working to make sure that overhead shots in the future do not have that low quality or skipping nature, but it will serve to show us what we're looking for here today. They turn in. Why do they turn in? They need their 8 guns to be able to hit the enemy as they pass each other. Excuse me, as they pass each other. They cannot be so far away that they have the win, sure, but they can't use it. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant from the SCP-38s. They're going to win this opening big time. All right, let's skip a little bit forward so you can see how this develops. Okay, so what they do is they come out here and they have really long range, but that's okay. Really long range is okay because your opponents have islands to their backs, to their side. So it's not like these guys can just turn in this way. They've got to go all the way around here and they've got to turn in. Now, at this point, you got to be thinking, what's going on in the Royal Black Fleet's mind? What do they have in any of these pathways that's going to lead them to be able to get a victory? Also, what we really need to be questioning is what's going on with this ship. Almost throughout the entire battle, what is going on with this ship? And its lack of presence in the battle is a huge draw away from the Royal Black Fleet's ability to bring major firepower towards the enemy. Because it is this ship or is this ship that at any point in the battle are nowhere near each other and unable to concentrate their forces. Now, what we're going to see here is, and I know why, because they told us in the exit interview, he's trying to cut off these guys. Here's the major problem. The wind is this way. The wind is north. You are not going to get a cutoff back here. It's not going to happen. You're going to take way too long getting there, and you're going to separate yourselves from your fleet. These guys decide to stay here as these guys come in, hit, and then start to come and cut around behind. That cut around behind is going to pressure these guys to book it into here, right? This is all good for the SCP-38 team. This is giving them the opportunity to pressure their opponents, to get in their heads, to make them fear, and what it does is it shatters this formation. It is a thing of beauty to watch, and my only regret is that the SCP-38s do not decide, okay, we've shattered them, now it's time to kill them. So, as you can see here, the trajectory that we're seeing of these ships is it is curving around. It is kind of curving around to get behind here. And that's the way that you really put maximum pressure on that 13 gun to really hurt it, right? And you make it run. You can see they're getting hungry. They want to come in here. They want to get behind. They want to hurt that 13 gun, and they're doing a great job at it. This is just the opening. Nobody's winning or losing at this point right here, but it's going to show us how the rest of this battle, like the tone the rest of this battle is going to have, with the SCP-38s keeping cohesion and applying pressure, and the Royal Black Fleet constantly abandoning positions in answer to the pressure that they're receiving from the 38s, and never really, as the Royal Black Fleet, being able to get their fleet back together to really concertedly repel 38 attacks. And there are so many opportunities where the SCP-38 could just pounce. Here's the first one. Look at this fleet maneuver here. Absolutely, positively, a hard starboard turn from the SCP-38s that cuts in here will send these guys doing one of two things. Either their morale will hold and they will create an effective defense, maybe line themselves up out here to repel the incoming SCP-38 vessels, but much more likely, these lead ships will take a lot of damage and then they will cut right into the middle of this formation. This is a moment for the SCPs to get aggressive. It's very early in the battle. I can see why they don't want to do it. Maybe they think they're going to have another opportunity later. We can forgive their lack of aggression here. But later on, it gets to sort of ridiculous levels of passivity from the SCP-38s. They have the wind at all times in this battle. There is not a moment where they can't turn into the enemy fleet and have maximum speed. That is what they wanted to preserve this whole battle. But just to preserve a good wind condition without utilizing it it's it's like getting a tool and then not using that tool, right? And so that is my criticism for the 38s here. It's not that they don't have a real great grasp of how to hold on to wind advantage. It's that they don't really use the wind advantage. And it's sad. It's sad to see because this is a team that had every opportunity, multiple opportunities to win this battle in decisive fashion. If we take a look and try and get to a view where we can really see what the Royal Black Fleet looks like at this point, it's not great. The concentration of forces is basically 3 ships. That these guys are not going around this side of the island and then sending these 2 guys around behind. It gets me. It hurts me a little bit. The 38s are a great team. They've got great cannoneers. They've got great captains. Guys, use them. Use them. Put a little bit of risk out there and go get them because they've got one ship that's so far out. Oh, this is going to be a terrible arrow. They've got one ship that's so far out this way. It ain't coming into the battle anytime soon. And now they've got this guy who's broken off from their fleet. The Royal Black Fleet are shedding ships like they don't want them. And you need to take advantage of that moment. Instead, the Royal Black Fleet is going to do a port side turn. What are you going to do? All right. The SCP-38s are going to have all the time in the world to recollect themselves. I'm sorry, the SCP-38s. The Royal Black Fleet, these guys, are going to have all the time in the world to collect themselves and reorient their fleet. Instead, what they're going to do is leave this 13 gun in the dust. Why? I have no idea. Again, it is one of those things where the Royal Black Fleet it's almost like they don't want their fleet to be together. I think they had this idea. I have to, again, we're just talking about Merc, just taking a guess here. I believe that the Royal Black Fleet believed that their victory condition was an envelopment, was to surround the 38s on 2 sides and hit them from 2 angles. That is clearly what they wanted to do in the beginning with that rogue ship that was trying to cut around behind the SCP-38s. But if that's what you want, you need the wind. You can't envelop an enemy while going against the wind. Your ships are too slow, and the enemy are too fast. They have times they can slip out of those maneuvers. So from the get-go, the Royal Black Fleet was never going to get what they wanted out of this. What they needed to do, they need to collect their fleet, they need to reorient themselves, and they need to basically get into a defensive position here. There are lots of islands you can do it in. The SCP-38s are giving you more time than God to do it, but it doesn't happen. Not until the very end. So let's see how this plays out. Okay. This is the state of the Royal Black Fleet. We have this ship down here, which I guess was the guy who went around, and he went so far around that he came back. This guy over here, who's racing to meet these guys. These guys over here, who's racing to meet this guy. And this guy over here, who I cannot even for a minute explain why the SCP-38s don't see this and reroute every single ship to turn and surround that ship. This guy has no right making it to the end of the game. No right whatsoever. He gets isolated in the extreme. You ever see a capital ship, especially the 13 gun, get that isolated, and you don't immediately turn around to take it out? I don't care if you have to sacrifice an 8 gun. I don't care what you have to sacrifice. You got to go get that, right? And so this is why I'm saying that the SCP-38s are, listen, this formation is beautiful. This formation is gorgeous. I love everything about this. Take it and put it here. You need to go and get the enemy if you want to win the battle. Instead, we have this highly passive mindset on both of these teams. And I don't think it's passive, really. That's the wrong word for it. It is, but it cannot be called aggressive. It is the SCP-38s constantly winning out in position, constantly having the wind on their side, having a beautiful fleet formation, understanding timing, understanding everything, and just never pulling the trigger. And unfortunately, it's why there's no ship sunk by the end of this battle. Even though it's a really good one, because it's a intellectually stimulating battle. To look at the SCP-38s and their performance here, it is to say that you are watching a fleet formation masters at work. This is great fleet formation. It is unfortunate that the fleet is not being utilized. All right, let's move forward. Let's get to the end game here, because these are my major critiques, so we don't really need to dwell on it further. Instead, let's get to the end game, which is the part that gets really interesting. It's when both of these teams see that they've got sub 20 minutes on the clock, 15 minutes left, and things start to get real. The only issue is, again, it's a mess. Finally, these things have gotten together. By the way, I'd like to note, we are out here. Okay, this is the point. Okay, let's say right about here. Okay, this is 17. I think it's hard to see, but I think it's 17 minutes. This is when the flagship actually gets to the battle. So let's say right around here, 13 minutes. That is a long time for a 13 gun. It's a long time for this 13 gun to be out of the battle. It is a unacceptably long time. These guys could have stayed with him. It's okay for the battle to happen over here. They needed to be united. Racing this way. What's it going to get you? Their whole fleet is going this way. So you're going to be outgunned. Anyway, there was also some critique from some of my co-hosts about this move here. Let's go back a little bit. Which is this here, where the flagship is going on this side of the islands instead of being on this side of the islands. And I kind of agree. I didn't think of it in the moment as the worst thing in the world, but I do kind of agree now. Really, that 13 gun should have stayed with the fleet. Like, what are you holding it back for? Your ship has tremendous ship HP. You don't need to be worried about 8 guns. Okay, they tag you a few times. You go this way, and then you offset yourself again later. That said, is it the biggest deal? No, it is not the biggest deal. Just a little critique. So now we have this end game battle. Okay, the 13 gun gets back into things. Again, we are not seeing the imminent need to win from the SCP-38s. They are happy to just find themselves in positions where they can whittle down their opponents, right? They're just whittling down these guys slowly but surely. These guys are out to lunch over here. They're firing huge shots that are probably not landing because they're too far away from their opponents. This 13 gun's got to get into battle. You gotta move, man. You got to get in there. Um, Things are going to develop here uh, in a way where something I think is very interesting happens. Um, these are going to swing in around here and try and take out, right? So these three ships are going to move this way and try and take out this ship. This is the only ship that's really in danger. Actually, I think maybe this ship or maybe this rear ship are also in danger of sinking. Both of these teams, with 5 minutes left on the clock, can win this by just taking out the enemy's weakest ship. Only the SCP-38s bother to try. And then what happens is this 13 gun here ends up doing this really cool rear guard action for it. So you can see here, here's the attack run, the final attack run, 33 minutes, 50 seconds on the clock. That's when the SCPs decided to start getting aggressive. It's not enough. And what's the worst of it all is that when they get here, right, they're in a situation where all these ships could just tilt a little bit this way and have a complete firing on that 8 gun. There is a 13 gun. You can't see it because it's behind this map. Firing at this 13 gun. It could be firing at this 8 gun. I think a few shots do go for it. This is a ship sink win right here, but they don't get it in time. 18 seconds left on the clock. They go for the 13 gun. Big mistake. 13 gun still got enough HP. It's a shame, but what are you gonna do? So yeah, I would say that we see here missed potential, missed opportunities. I think there. So let's try to do a little rewind and talk about the times where I think that the SCP-38s could have really gotten a win here. And so it's first of all, this is a great opening. SCP-38 is coming out really strong here. I would say this right here is a moment, even until this point, because this ship could do a hard turn. If these guys are going to go back here, cut them off from the back. Some of these ships will hang out because they'll think, oh, we can get you as you're coming in. And then you completely envelop them with your ships and take them out completely. This is a moment, not the best moment for aggression, but certainly a moment for aggression. The moment for aggression that I really have a hard time understanding is here. This is a situation where I can't make an excuse for the SCP-38s. They absolutely could have won the battle here. They could have won the battle obliteratingly. Like, they could have, obliteratingly is not a word. They could have obliteratingly won the battle. It is a word that fits this scenario, okay? They could have come in here and they could have beat the hell out of that 13 gun. They could have taken out these two isolated 8 guns. All they had to do was, instead of going around this way, you just go around this. You just go around this way. It is that easy, and unfortunately, they did not do it. This turn here, as you're coming around, do a nice, narrow, tight turn here, right? You go out this way, and then you just pivot like this. You hit the hell out of this guy. These guys are in front of you, and they're thinking, oh, man, we're really going to hit him from this way. You got the wind. You just blow past them. Surround them. Obliterate them. You're going to take damage. You take damage in these battles. It's okay to take damage. If you are putting out more damage than you are receiving, you are winning. Bottom line. Anyway, that's the part that got me for the SCP-38s. A great team who put in a great performance, showed their ability to command fundamentals, but simply did not press home the advantages on the moments that they had those advantages. And instead, they thought, let's play safe. We'll wait for later. We've got time. And they said that right up into the end when there was no more time. And then they're charging an enemy 13 gun, trying to get something at the end there, hoping for a points victory. And they got it, but it's not by much. 1,000 points. This should have been a blowout for the SCP-38s. I'm not trying to talk poorly about the Royal Black Fleet here. The Royal Black Fleet is a good fleet. They have shown us in the past that they know how to exploit an opportunity when it is presented to them. What the SCP-38s did so well in this battle is they never gave the Royal Black Fleet any kind of opening that they could pressure to break apart the SCP-38's line. So for that, Defensively, the SCP-38s played a basically perfect defensive game, except they weren't playing against an offensive opponent. They were playing against an opponent who themselves were scattered and disjointed for most of this battle. And so that's when, as the SCP-38s, you need to say, okay, this defensive game has been working for us for the first half of the battle, but now it's time to get on to an offensive game. It's time to pick them apart piece by piece and obliterate their fleet. I don't see many other fleets having this kind of moment and not pouncing. And I hope for the 38s that they do not become a fleet that passes up stellar opportunities like this in favor of keeping a pretty fleet cohesion, which again is its own amazing thing. But again, it's the tool that was not used. And that's how I feel. So again, in these first battles, we are seeing overall. Let's do our overall takeaways here. Every team in the league has gotten better through the preseason. The level of tactics, maneuvering, positioning, all of that is a, a, a graduated grade above what we saw in the preseason. The early preseason, these guys were just running into each other, blasting, hoping. Now we're seeing strategy. Now we're seeing caution. The next level of this competition has to be to move beyond these cautionary maneuvers, beyond having so much respect for your enemy that you give them the space to maneuver. It is get a good position, get a good formation, and strike. That kind of play is going to turn this league into a league of like wolves hunting one another. And that's what the audience is going to want to see. That's what I want to see, and I know in their hearts that's what the Admirals want to do. I think we're seeing there was a break between the end of the preseason and the season. We're seeing all of these Admirals get their sea legs again. These whatever critiques I have here are to be forgiven, right? They are, they are they're getting back into the groove of this thing. They are reminding themselves of what they learned from last season, and they're trying to apply it. If it's not done as artfully as possible, give them time. They are going to develop into monsters this season, and I cannot wait to see it. These first few battles, they've shown me everything I need to see to get very excited about the rest of this league. Even if they themselves were not the most thrilling battles in the whole world, they are clearly a setup for a magnificent season 1 of the NSL. I am deeply excited to be participating in this league, and I am honored to be running it. We will be doing more of these wardrooms in the future whenever there's a break. And you can see on the schedule in our Discord, there will be breaks every 3 to 4 games. And on those breaks, we will come back here and we will analyze all the games from the last wardrooms up until the current moment. I'd like to thank a few people. Atticus, Eggs, Mr. Dr. Professor. Each of these guys were in here helping me to get this whole thing set up. They're the best directors you could ever ask for. They're the best art directors you can ever ask for. They're the best when it comes to the new look of the league. You can even just see from today's 3 matches the progression of what you're seeing on the screen when it comes to the teams and identifying who's the yellow ships, the green ships, who's the host on the bottom, all this stuff, our new logo, all of this stuff is thanks to their hard efforts, and we're really appreciative towards them for everything they've done. I also would like to thank Percy from the KRN for helping me out with what we are jokingly calling behind the scenes Merck's Crayon, which is this guy here. Thanks, Percy, for the suggestion. It has been really nice to have. I am still getting used to using it, but it's going to be something that you're going to see not only in the wardrooms, but I'm going to try and put my hands on it also during the broadcasts to help you viewers to understand a little bit more about what I'm talking about and who I'm talking about, because I know I talk a lot, I talk fast, and I want to make sure that you are all following me. So with that, I will end our wardroom for today, and I will see you on the next one. We have some upcoming battles, which I hope are being shown on the screen. They may be, they may not be. I cannot see them, and so I will go and look really quick. Let's talk about what next week's is. Maybe you don't see them on the screen. That's okay. Let's talk about next week's. It is a return of two of the teams that we have seen here, but a very interesting one. we have the Krakens versus the Jackals of the Baltic Sea. That is going to be on the 23rd of this month. And that is on Diamond Isle. That's a throwback from the preseason map. And so this is the opportunity, I think, if I'm being candid, there's going to be an opportunity for the Krakens to show that the defeat that they suffered at the hands of the Leviathans may mean that they're not ready to match up against the Leviathans just yet, but it does not mean that there's any other team in the league that can stand against them. Right? That's the narrative that they need to start making here. They've got to position themselves as the number 2 team in the league. They were the number 2 team in the league in the preseason, and to lose to the Jackals, who are, I think, of all the teams right now, and I want to say it honestly because you guys are paying attention to this to hear my honest opinion, and as I said, with no ill will or intent, I think the Jackals are at this point probably on the weaker half of the teams. They have gotten their fleet cohesion together, but I'm just, again, I'm kind of not seeing the killer's instinct from them yet. Though they are made from regiments who have that killer instinct, so I really want to see it in the future. I think they suffer the more than any other team from the thing that all the other teams are suffering from, which is the inability to close, to get to a victory condition and to press that victory condition until the enemy is obliterated. I think the Krakens have a really good shot at winning against the Jackals at this point because the Krakens do know how to get a win, whereas the Jackals got to come next week to prove me and everything I just said wrong. And I would love to see it. I would love to see that. That would be amazing. So just to go on for some of the other, what you can expect between now and the next Wardroom. Next week is the Krakens versus the Jackals of the Baltic Sea. After that is the Marines versus the SCP-38, which is going to be a battle of winners. And I cannot wait to see that. And then my Leviathans are fighting the Royal Black Fleet. And then the last week, so we'll have 4 up before the next Wardroom, is the Jackals of the Baltic Sea versus the SCP-38. So that'll be interesting as well. So the Jackals are going to get 2 battles over the next set of 4 games, and as are the SCP-38s. So we'll get a little bit more information on them than on the Krakens and the Marines and the Leviathans. But I'll come back with you on the next Wardroom after all those battles are finished, and we'll take a look at each one of them and see how the league develops after those 4 battles. I cannot wait to join you for that. Again, my name is Lamerck, founder of the NSL, leader of the Leviathans team, and your host for the Wardroom today. Thank you for joining me. I'll see you next time.